To round us out this afternoon, I want to welcome back two of our speakers from this morning. Fiona Simpson, the National Farmers Federation President, and Dr. Ben Guzansky, Head of Rural and Regional at Telstra, which is today's major partner as well. I'm not sure if Ben's still here. Fiona, it might just be you and I.
Oh, what a sad thing.
I want to, maybe Ben will join us if he does.
I'm sure Ben will, if Ben's here.
Oh.
There we go. If Ben's here, I'm sure he'll come down.
What's been the big takeouts for you from today?
Look, so many takeouts actually. And I think we started the day talking about the fact that our $100 billion vision was a very big, sexy target, talking about $100 billion that we were delighted to have this government's support for, we were delighted to have the previous government's support for, as David said, and a whole lot of other stakeholders as well. But it isn't just about the sexy headline. Never is, really,
no.
Is it? It's about the package. And for the 2030 roadmap to actually mean something to farmers and to the many, many stakeholders and different people involved in our supply chain and the community and Australia, then we have to get the foundational pillars and the bits that make up that target right. And so that's what we've been talking about today. And the take home for me is I just think so many opportunities. I always think so many opportunities, but also some really serious challenges that we need to look to solve. And we are but a microcosm of a very big global picture. And so we have to solve those challenges as an industry in that context, Dan, where we're not alone on this. We are a really big, diverse industry in Australia. We have an enormous potential, but we are part of a much, much bigger global picture.
And it strikes me that one of the red threads that ran through today was about creating opportunity from risk and from challenge. We also heard a lot about those black swan events and perhaps what we've learned coming out of those. What was your takeaway from that?
Some of the black swan events, and I spoke about them at the beginning, and then I think Cheryl talked about them, and again, Barry, it's been through, some of the events that are affecting our industry and our supply chain, both domestically and globally right now, when we think about what they colloquially call the 3 Cs, yep. So COVID, climate change and conflict. Cheryl said, there's no easy answer to these, and normally we might go through these peaks and troughs where we have things like, people talk glibly about peak fuel, peak food. We're at one of those points now where, people are paying a lot for their food, but farmers are also paying a lot for everything else. And how are we going to move to a point where we can get those food supply chains moving again? How can we make sure that everything can come back in equilibrium again? There is no easy answer because we're in uncharted territory. And so we have to, I think, black swan events are a thing in agriculture. If you're a farmer, you know that you are up against so many things that are outside of your control. So you have to try and manage those circumstances as best as you possibly can. And you asked Tony at the beginning of the day, how does the roadmap actually help prepare for the next drought? Well, what it envisages is that we do need to address some of these things. We do need to address the challenges around labour, around people, around climate change, around infrastructure, around competition policy. We need to address all of those challenges. But we also need to look at, creating diversity on our farms, creating opportunities for farmers through the biodiversity stewardship scheme again, those sorts of things, and looking at how we can diversify our enterprises, learning how, working out how we can actually look at some of the competition issues and how we can value add more on our farms and create more value, which is all about what the $100 billion really is. It's about farmers collecting that value at farm gate. So, for me, black swans is just part of being a farmer. As an industry, that's why we have NFF and all our members who bring those views to the table and fight for them. And we need to get really smart at how we collaborate in combating them.
It's such a good point. I was at an event and a farmer was asked the question, what did you learn from COVID-19 just a couple of days ago? And she said, well, in the ag sector, we are rolling crises. We're learning and reacting and responding on a day-to-day basis. COVID-19 was just one of those.
We just roll from one to one,
Yeah.
one to the next one. And in actual fact, for a lot of farmers in Australia, COVID-19 was when the seasons returned to normal. Yes, we had a huge amount of challenges across borders and getting, but we actually worked really well as a sector, as David said. We actually really underpinned the nation during COVID-19, and people became aware of what it is that we do. And actually NFF took the opportunity to put out there a number of ads and billboards around "We've got you back, farmers have got you back," because in those days billboards were actually pretty cheap. But
we probably set the prices through the roof. Market economies.
I'll hesitate to say that not many people were seeing the billboards personally, but we did actually photograph them a number of times and put them all over social media. So it made us feel really, really good. And look, the message was out there. Look, all these people were locked up, but they were dependent on the spaghetti on the shelves, the loo paper. I know forestry's here. The loo paper on the shelves, getting the fruit and veggies, and of course we've gone on to the $12 lettuces and things like that as well. So, I think lots and lots of threads coming through, Dan, that probably no surprises to anyone, but I do think that I feel quite positive about some of the opportunities, and I do also understand the role of people and the role of technology underpinning most of the solving of most of those challenges.
And I wanted to go to that because innovation, technology, data, communication have all been additional red threads that have run through the conversations that are in and of themselves challenges, but with the exception of innovation, but can be real opportunities.
Yeah, and look, very timely mention of innovation, because right now, as I think Charlie might have mentioned earlier on today, or it was mentioned, our Telling Our Story current campaign is around innovation, and we've seen some of the ads. Well, they're not ads. What do I call them? Campaign? They're ads? Okay. Some of the ads around innovation in agriculture, streaming, the girl with the curly hair going through greenhouses and things. Not me. That's all part of the Telling Our Story, and funded by that philanthropic trust that is actually people willing to put their money where their mouth is when it comes to making connections with consumers. Hats off to all our partners in the Telling Our Story Trust, because that campaign is not branded. We don't blazon all those ads with logos. They're actually willing to do it because they feel that it's a really important job to do, and we support them where we can. So I think that's something. But what was the question, Dan? I had some really good comment about it, and I can't think what it was.
It was about innovation, technology, data communication. I think you were going to communication.
So innovation, data. So the other thing I was going to mention was, so having just come back from COP, where Tony and Jana and I were there on behalf of Agriculture Australia, but also a huge global farming contingent. Agriculture, Australian agriculture, and we don't often actually give ourselves the nod in Australia. I'm with David. We don't often puff our chests out, and we don't often, tip our hat to ourselves. But Australian agriculture is recognised as globally leading the way when it comes to the way that, first of all, we enable science and technology, and our R&D system that we farmers actually pay for, largely, and government, we get co-contributions for, and the innovation and then the enablement that gives farmers on ground. I mean, farmers own a lot of the research and the development, and because we pay for it. And I think that gives us an edge in Australia, and we are the envy of the world when it comes to actually looking at some of these challenges like climate change, where data is really going to drive some of our decision making, where technology is really going to drive some of our decision making. We're ahead of the curve because other governments, governments in Europe, for example, they really like the unique character of their, rustic villages in rural and regional Italy and France, and they want to keep their farmers in that sort of environment. So their farmers would love to be like us, but they can't because their government says no. So our governments, and the previous government and the current government, is saying, yes, we want to work with you. So it's our challenge to work with the governments, to hold them to account for the things we want them to do better, and to really make sure that we can work with the government and then with the community, but to keep being that outstanding industry globally that we are, and I reckon we are.
I reckon David and Murray can both attest to that advocacy. Just as we round out this leadership summit, any final thoughts from you, perhaps about where to from here as you're embarking on this next stretch of the 2030 roadmap?
So I think, as I said earlier, the 2030 roadmap, I think, has been a game changer for not just for NFF and our members, but also for agriculture in Australia. And it's been people have been able to coalesce behind a target. We've set our targets, we've held ourselves accountable to the targets, and the exciting thing is that it is actually a really nice coffee table book, it's still there, but it's actually a living, breathing document. And we do, every year, we check in and we see how we're going, and we know what we're fighting for and what we're going for, because it's all written out there. It's a plan. So what these sorts of forums do is to bring that plan to life, because for me the take home is that even if we're trending quite well towards the target, which at the moment we are, but we know that there's tailwinds and all that sort of stuff, we need it to be meaningful to everybody in that supply chain and everybody in that industry. And so we have to keep making sure that we hold ourselves to account and we make ourselves responsible. I mean, it's not enough to say NFF will do that, or government will do that, or someone else will do that. We have to personally take responsibility, and that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to see. Honestly, I cannot tell you how excited I am about Ag Career Start. David, I wish you'd seen that presentation, because it was your support that got that program going, and it's just the most exciting concept. But it's people taking responsibility for their own futures and being part of the solution. We as agriculture are part of the solution, but each and every one of you has a role to play in that.
Yeah, Fiona, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And just in closing, can I thank you and the board for NFF, Tony, Charlie and the entire team for all the work in pulling together this jam-packed program. You've got another point. Go.
Can I just ask the board, please, because I always forget to do this. Can I just please ask the board to just stand up where they are in the seats and wave at everybody, because the board is dotted throughout. David, stand up. Right. Thank you. So this is the board of NFF. If you've got questions about NFF, and Tony's here, he's eaten his spot because he's like 3 heads above everybody else. If you've got questions about anything that we're doing, hit up one of the board. Hit up Tony, hit up one of our team. Charlie's over there. He's a good person to take your concerns to as well. But we are just so grateful that you're here and you're participating and you're part of our discussion and part of our day. And thank you, Dan, very much too, for running us to time, for chairing such a fantastic... Can I have a round of applause for Dan?
Oh, thank you. It's not... Thank you. Thanks, Fiona, and for everyone who's attended today. This has been a big day, lots of big concepts, conversations. It's been great to hear so many of your questions as well. That I think it's the only thing I lament is that we don't have more time for questions, but something's got to give, doesn't it? If you're attending the networking drinks and the canapes tonight at the National Portrait Gallery, the registration opens at 6:30. For now, though, thank you so much. Good afternoon.